So when we first seen Richard Parker, Peter Parker's son, become this new version of Spider-Man or Spider-Boy, or this younger generation of the Spider Hero, if you will, at first it was really just a breath of fresh air because, this is a new and interesting twist that hasn't really been explored. But it also comes with the downfalls of being a younger Spider-Man. And Richard here, for all of his ups and flaws, genuinely might spell the doom and end for Peter Parker and his entire family. But first, though, we have to backtrack a little bit. Take it back from the top in the beginning as we see the cavalry and backup finally arrive to the canyons to save and rescue Peter, specifically, and his entire family here. And it is none other than Harry Osborn, who was revealed to him to be alive and not actually murdered by Kraven. But even as they catch up and make their reintroductions after so long, we see that Harry didn't just come alone, as he came bearing gifts and offering a trade, as Uncle Ben and J. Jonah Jameson also step out of the same plane. And here they decide to do a little bit of a switch. Because of everything going on in New York with Kingpin and this entire war that is brewing underneath the scene, yes, Harry Osborn as the Green Goblin, Gwen Stacy, his wife, as Mysterio, and New York at large needs Spider-Man. So Peter is going to hitch a ride back while Uncle Ben and J. Jonah stay here. And so of course, eventually everybody has to say their goodbyes as Peter packs up to leave with Harry. Though it is interesting to note that even though Uncle Ben and J. Jonah don't directly know that Peter is Spider-Man, obviously they know something is up because they do know that Harry is the Green Goblin. So they can kind of connect the dots and say it without actually saying it. And so as everybody packs up and leaves, Peter just has one question for Harry right now. Where is Gwen? At this point, him still not knowing that she is, part of this new Mysterio group running things behind the scenes, we see exactly where she is right now, with said group running things behind the scenes. Though there is something to note about this Mysterio group. Even though they may seem very old and very powerful in what they can do and their abilities and how widespread their influence is, they aren't fully united or on all one same page because they even have to get on Gwen about this. Her decision to kill Kraven, seemingly him being dead for real and it's not a trick, as Harry's death was, something like that. Killing someone so close to Kingpin could unravel everything they have going on here. So of course, the members here, largely at least, are kind of upset with her. Quentin Beck, the usually original and only Mysterio, who also seems to be the leader here, if you can even call him that, goes on to say that they're supposed to make decisions together. They are a team, a group, all supposed to be on one accord. But Gwen also goes on to make the argument here that all they do is talk and then talk some more. Talk. They are never truly about action or making steps to inflict real change. Because at this point, she has attacked two members of Kingpin's posse, his little villain team, killing Kraven and then publicly attacking Mr. Negative just before, as we've seen with the Green Goblin, pretty clearly and loudly declaring war on Kingpin and his activities here in New York and in the world at large. In which a move this bold and this public, even though it did take some of Kingpin's men down, all it really did was set Kingpin's sight on Mysterio and everybody here, as the Kingpin Wilson Fisk vowed to kill them even if it takes everything he has. Though at the very least, if anything, it seems like there's one person here who actually agrees with Gwen in her actions being taken, in which is another member of the Mysterio group who up to this point we haven't really seen, another woman actually, who goes on to blatantly agree and back up Gwen's action, going on to say, of course I agree with her. Are we not here for a reason? Are we truly committed? Do we truly believe the words? As she goes on to recite the oath that each of the Mysterio members here have to say and truly believe in to be a Mysterio. The world is a lie, and only through embracing those lies and becoming a master of them can we truly see. Our craft is old, older than the lie. Our power is ageless, and the amulet passed on from sire to spawn. 1 to wear it, 5 to share it. We are Mysterio. And just like that, they are all on one page again to now go after Kingpin directly and everything that he has going on. Though, of course, they aren't the only heroes, if you want to call them that, on the same mission, as you could over into New York now with the amazing Spider-Man Peter Parker now back in action, swinging about with Harry Osborn, the Green Goblin, in which they decide to talk about the logistics of having a war with Kingpin and all his little friends, with Harry going on to say, if we are going to be at war with Kingpin, we're going to need some new rules for how said war is going to be conducted. First of all, innocent people are not going to get hurt, which obviously should be a no-brainer, but Harry was singing a little different tune earlier before. But before they can go into super detail about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, they need to meet up with Gwen, the other part of this little Kingpin stopping team, but she is still about an hour away, so that leaves them with a little time to kill, which just begs the question, what do two superpowered vigilantes or superheroes within New York do when they have a little bit of time to kill? Yes, they go to stop and beat up some bad guys. And here we see exactly that, from them going and fighting the Shocker again, to Hammerhead, who makes makes an appearance, and even who I assume is maybe Vermin, maybe even the Jackal. Regardless, it seems like they're just super efficient and unstoppable as a duo that they did all of that within 45 minutes, leaving them a quarter of an hour or 15 minutes left. So in that case, after being gone from New York for a couple months, Peter says, okay, what a little bit more time to kill, as he goes on to swing by his old apartment, just to find out that everything is in utter chaos and ruin, which at first thought might be, okay, well, this is New York, and after being gone for so long, maybe someone broke in and trashed the place looking for valuables, but it seems to be slightly deeper than that, as someone opens the door with a bat, swinging ready to defend this property against the intruders, only to find out that it's Otto Octavius, who for this entire time has been living here. Yes, living in the home that Peter and his family lived in for how many years. Otto just deciding, well, you know, the Parkers are vacant, so this is free real estate and I'm gonna live here, even going as far as to wear Peter's slippers, which of course just angers and ticks Spider-Man off. But the reasoning here about why this is happening is Harry had certain protocols in place, so whenever the stuff happened from before, he sent Otto to make sure the Parker apartment was fully secure and protected. Though after a while in installing all the security measures and the Parker still not being back for months, Otto just decided why waste all of his time and effort, and he might as well just move in and keep the place warm until they're able to come back. But again, Peter doesn't even know how to feel about this, because to him, even though he knows Otto, he's still basically an acquaintance, you know, a step above a stranger, sure, but he's not close enough to be living in his own home when his family and him are away. But eventually, after getting out, getting some air, and Harry explaining the situation more to him, he eventually comes around. Because at the end of the day, even though Otto took it a step far, his intentions were good and it was a good call. It was all to protect his family. Even in his own words, Peter says it was the right decision. Because if there's one thing he has learned since this entire time of being Spider-Man and this vigilante, this superhero, is that he can only do his job to the best of his abilities and the way it needs to be done if he knows that his family are safe. Which makes sense. You can't be the amazing Spider-Man swinging and stopping crime and bad guys when, as a father and husband, as Peter is, worrying about if his own very family is even safe in general. Though, as we're going to see very shortly, someone very close, his son, is going to put all of their secrets, their very lives, in jeopardy. Because as we move back over into the canyons where the rest of his family are with Uncle Ben and J. Jonah, we see them start to incorporate and settle in for this temporary vacation, if you will. And that is until they get back to their camper and see a note on the door. A note from Richard himself telling his mother that, well, he's going to be gone for a little bit, and has essentially hitched a ride and snuck away. Why, you may ask? Well, because of a girl and feelings involved. Now, if this was some random other person, sure, this would be still bad, but not as bad as it could be. But unfortunately, though, the girl in question is Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat, who was, you know, a criminal, a villain. So, you know, that just takes it a step above it being a normal civilian. But we see Richard here and Felicia being able to stay in touch, texting throughout the months that they have been here undercover in the canyons of Utah. But it seems like, at least on Richard's end, it's a little more than that. Richard going on to even self-proclaim her as his girlfriend. His exact reasoning being, sure, they haven't crossed certain thresholds, but when two people spend this much time together, in quotations, you know, you can connect the dots from there. So Felicia goes on to reply to this saying, well, if that's the case, that will make you my boyfriend. And you know what superpowered boyfriends are really good at? Saving their girlfriends. As she goes on to imply and even say that she is in really bad trouble and she needs his help. And who wouldn't want to be the help, to play the hero when someone you know and care about is in trouble and needs help? But in this case, he could be the hero in the most literal sense, because he does have the Picotech suit and is indeed a version of Spider-Man. So he makes up his mind that he has to somehow get back to New York and help her. Though the artificial intelligence version of Peter inside the suit goes on to essentially disprove of his methods and what he's trying to do, calling it dangerous, reckless, how even Peter himself, his actual father, would not agree to any of this or approve of it. But Richard, being young and dumb, I think around 15 or 16, around that range, the same age range that Peter was originally when he became Spider-Man, you know, he pushes forward anyway, using the suit to go invisible and hitch a ride on the plane that Peter and Harry were on to make it all the way back to New York. Eventually going to the meetup spot and whatever location that the Black Cat, Felicia Hardy, told him to be at. And it seems like for the most part, this isn't a trick. She is actually there in the flesh. Though, as we're going to find out, that really wasn't the thing in question here. It's everything surrounding why she is here. As we see, she isn't alone, as the Kingpin himself, Wilson Fisk, yes, the almost boogeyman of New York, is here too, surrounded by her father, the original Black Cat, and a bunch of other Bullseye soldiers. Now, this is the same Kingpin who took on Peter himself. Actually, not just that, he took on Peter and the Green Goblin in a 2-on-1 and pretty much dominated that fight. side. So Richard here, without any actual powers technically as it is all in the suit, it's not much he can truly do if he were to come to a head-on-head confrontation against the villains here. At best, he could try to escape. But the Kingpin orchestrated this entire thing for a specific purpose. As he even goes on to say, it's understandable that you're going to be scared, yes, but your situation is precarious. But nothing bad has to happen here. I just need your help. Miss Hardy here, Felicia Hardy, tells us you slipped up something when communicating with her, giving away a little bit more information each time. Certainly enough for someone smart enough, savvy enough to read in between the lines, basically connecting the dots, showing that Richard here is in leagues and partnership with the actual Spider-Man. The person Kingpin wants dead or alive, leaning more closely onto the dead side. But that's the exact reason why he lured Richard here, as he goes on to continue saying, and one way or another, you're going to give him to me, leaving Richard here in a very bad spot, rat out his father and the hero of New York to the Kingpin, his worst enemy thus far, or just die, I guess, or get captured, and who knows what could happen. Though ultimately this entire situation is his own doing, but also partly to blame on the Black Cat, as he even goes on to turn to her and ask, how could you do this? Were you lying this entire time about us, about what they quote unquote were? But it seems like that really isn't the case, because she even goes on to say no, she wasn't. But then that brings in the question of why do this? And it's a pretty obvious answer, really. It's simply just in her nature. Not everybody's nature is a good-willed person. Some people are just who they are, not the best, or downright even pretty evil. So even while the Black Cat, Felicia Hardy, may have some feelings toward Richard here, at the end of the day, she is in leagues with the villains here and the Kingpin at large. So yeah, while Peter is off thinking his family is safe and he can be Spider-Man to the best of his abilities, yeah, his son just walked into the ultimate death trap, waiting for consequences to be unleashed. Though if you have made it to the end here, make sure to leave a like, or subscribe if you're new and want to see more content just like this. Leave all your thoughts, comments, and whatever else down below. This was AJ here at The Hero Informer, and thank you for watching.